welcome to Watershed. We're so glad that you are here, and all of you are the ones who made it through daylight savings time. So congratulations, A+. We're going to need a little extra energy from you this morning. As we begin, I want to invite you to stand and we'll sing together. Thank you again so much for being here with us. And this is a lot of energy for daylight savings time. I love it. So often we'll spend a little bit of time as you're coming in, giving you an opportunity to center yourself, to take a few deep breaths. This morning in particular, maybe to take an extra sip of coffee. there is a lot going on in the world right now. There's a lot going on in each of your lives. And in a lot of spaces, the narrative is that you should kind of leave that at the door. That you should leave the pieces that are distracting you or whatever at the door. And here, our goal is actually that you would bring all of that in with you. All of the things that make you who you are, all of the things that are a part of your story are not only welcome, we think they're really important. So we're going to sing a song that we've sung before, but the name of the song is Come and Tear Down the Walls. And I think one way to hear this song is the wall between you and God. Another way to hear this song is the wall between you and yourself. The places of you that are walled off, that maybe you have a hard time looking at, have a hard time accessing, have a hard time seeing. And there's very good reasons that we put walls up, reasons that are to protect us. And then sometimes those reasons are harming us. They're things that we're ashamed of, things that we have been told aren't good. And as we sing this song, maybe there are places this morning that you would like to try to look at, you try to include in the morning. Whatever you need in these next few moments, I hope you'll take the time and that you'd have the courage and bravery to look for it.
Come and tear down the walls I built up. Every wall I built up, every wall I built up. 'Cause you deserve every piece of my heart, every piece of my heart, every piece of my heart. Come and tear down the walls I built up, every wall I built up, every wall I built up. You deserve every piece of my heart, every piece of my heart, every piece of my heart. Lord, I'm trusting that you are faithful, Father.
Tear down the walls, every wall, every wall built up. 'Cause you deserve every piece of mine, every piece of mine, every piece of mine. God, this morning as we come in and we start to take a few deep breaths and we start to settle into the space. God, I pray that any part of ourself that we feel like we have to wall off to be here, to be present, that we all would have the courage to bring it in, to bring it into the room and allow it to be present. God, there's a sense that there's a divineness to that work, to the spaces that are walled off to us, the blind spots we have, the shadow self, the dark sides of who we are. It feels like this divine space. And God, we know that you're in that. You're in that space. And that there's a desire to be in that with us. So God, I pray that in these next few moments, the moments that we have together, God, that they would feel divine. They would feel otherworldly. They would feel like there's something different. God, that we would have the permission to go there and the bravery to do it. And that we would know that there are people all around us who are wrestling through the same thing, trying to figure that out. We're grateful for a community and a group to do that with. God, we love you. We love each other, and we pray all this in your name. Amen. I want to give you a chance to look around and see the people around you, greet the people around you, and then we will continue with the morning.
Congratulations, you guys came out. It's daylight savings time, and you guys made it this morning, so congratulations. I'm proud of y'all. Happy International Women's Month. We're going to acknowledge that. Hello, good morning. Well, my name is Dominique. I am on staff here at Watershed. I am so excited to be with you all this morning. It's been a minute since I've done announcements, so hello. This morning, we're going to continue our series with Commune. We get to hear from the teaching team panel. Woohoo! So if this is your first time here, I just want to acknowledge and say thank you for coming out. Whether you live close by, whether you live 2 hours away, thank you for joining us this morning, and I hope that you were able to meet someone, and I hope you exchanged numbers. Someone met doing Pass the Peace, and they got married, so who knows? It's possible. So we welcome you. We invite you to fill out a connection card. The QR code is going to take you to this digital card. This is a way for us to get to know you a little bit more. There's some questions that ask about what are some things that you're interested in, what your feedback is after service. We want to just get you plugged in and get you connected. And so we invite you to do that. And we will also love to visit you in the very back towards the end of service if you are available. Next up, next week we have our ICU Talks workshop. ICU Talks is the speaking mental health ministry that partners with Watershed. So we've been talking about this workshop for a while. It is led by yours truly, myself, as your trauma coach. I wear a lot of hats here. So next weekend, the workshop is called The Stories We Carry, and it's really important to share your story because there's healing in that, and it's very powerful. And so next weekend, we get to have the opportunity, it's optional, it's your choice, to share your story, practice sharing your story, practice active listening. We're gonna have 3 speakers that's gonna kind of share a little bit about their story, and then we transition into the workshop. The cost for this is $15, but we don't want that to handicap you for any reason. And so if you have any challenges or issues with that cost, email icutalks.org. Come see me. Kim Honeycutt's here. Feel free to let us know. But that date is March 15th, 9 to 10:30 here at Watershed. I would love to see you all here. And there's not a lot of spots left, so that's a good thing. Next up, we have affinity groups. Those are our ongoing community groups, AKA blocks, that we have here at Watershed. Right after service today, young adults will be meeting at Moo and Brew. I'm going to butcher this because I don't like talking about age, but young adults is 20s and 30s. So if you are in that range, feel free to join us. The second group that we have is Prime Time. That is for people in midlife. I'm going to leave it right there. I was talking to David. I had a hard time because I didn't want to leave anybody out. I hate leaving people out. So if you're in that midlife, you know who you are. Prime Time. And they meet, and then we also have our Kindred group. This morning, some of you guys came in, and it was a lot, but every second Sunday, Kindred has a bake sale, and they also have coffee for donation. Those proceeds go towards the community, and it also helps them prepare for Pride Month. We're all about Pride Month here. And we're also offering another group, which are late 30s, early 40s, 50. There you go, Rhonda. Yeah, see? Blockbusters. You hear it, crowd? So you want to reach out to Rhonda and Betsy, follow them on Instagram, Facebook. They're going to tell you a little bit more. But that's a group. What'd you say, Daniel? MySpace. There we go. I got you. Look at that. Bring the energy, guys. I'm here for it. So we're launching that group. So every month there's going to be a group just for you. So you get a group, and you get a group, and you get a group. Everybody gets a group. Everybody gets a group. And you can look for more information if you go to our website under Connect and Learn. There's like a little block that says groups. Click on that, and it's going to give you more information. Next up, March 22nd, here at Watershed, we are hosting a screening of the film For Our Daughters. That's going to be hosted by one of our volunteers, Kirby McKinnell. She's the co-director of a beautiful organization called Data. For Our Daughters is a film that was written by the author of Jesus and John Wayne. We did a book club on that last year, and it's going to highlight white evangelical nationalism, the harm of white evangelical nationalism. It's a 30-minute film. After that, it's going to be a panel discussion, just highlighting the importance of just linking arms, creating space, and creating language around that harm, specifically for our next generation. We want to prepare our next generation with the tools and resources that they need. And so we invite you to join us in that. Next up, the past couple of weeks, we've been talking about our lead team and how valuable they are to our community. And we've been interviewing, we've been interviewing certain people. And so this morning, I want to call out my friend, Ollie. Can you welcome Ollie to the stage? Woo! Oh, hi, Oliver, Ollie. So friends, this is Ollie. Ollie is part of our lead team. Our lead team is just a group of people that helps us to stay accountable. They help support us, specifically Matt O'Neill. But they help all of us. We're all in this together. So Ollie, can you tell us who Ollie is to Ollie?
I think I want to answer it a different way. So I want to start off by who's Ollie to Watershed or others before I answer who Ollie is to Ollie. So as I was reflecting through this, obviously I'm Asian, Filipino. I'm also American, which makes me a dual citizen. Also being Filipino, I identify as Roman Catholic. Then another aspect of me is I'm a member of the LGBTQIA community, Kindred. I'm a married man, a husband to Mark for 25 years. 25 years this year. And we live in Plaza Midwood. I also, from a work perspective, I'm an IO psychologist, so I practice HR. I've been an HR business partner. I've also been an HR consultant. And then in Watershed, I volunteer in various aspects, whether it be the production team, the lead team, Kindred, blocks, everything. So I've been a volunteer and also an active participant, probably for the last 15 years.
Wow.
So I'm
awesome.
a long timer here.
Yeah.
So that's
You're a
who I am to others.
Yeah.
So now when I think about who is Ollie to Ollie, you'll notice a little bit of a difference. So the words that came up when I thought about who Oliver is to Oliver is anxious, not worthy, scared, nervous, incompetent. So you notice that there's a difference between how I view myself in the public and how I view myself internally.
Well, we love you.
Yeah,
We
thank
love
you.
all of you.
Thank you for allowing me to be vulnerable.
I love you. And why Watershed?
So, why did I choose Watershed and why did I choose to be a member of the lead team? So as I think about it,
You overachiever.
yeah,
Go for it.
being an overachiever, as I was reflecting on my time here in Watershed, I came to realize three things. For me to grow in my spiritual path, I needed to engage more with people, community. I needed to step up, commitment. And I needed to have a voice, communication. So the reasons why I'm in Watershed and I chose to be where I am right now is basically for those three things: community, communication, and commitment.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you, Holly. We
Yeah.
appreciate you.
Thank you.
And lastly, friends, your resources, your generosity is able to get people like Ollie on our team to represent who we are. And so we thank you so much for your generosity. Matt spoke a little bit about this last week of like where your resources go. And I can tell you, friends, I'm coming from some church hurt, and your resources helps me more than you know. It has helped me healed in so many different ways. And so your resources goes beyond keeping the lights on, hiring staff, creating recovery groups. You're healing people like me. So I appreciate your resources and your generosity, and for people like Ollie to come up and to serve. So we thank you so much for being here, and welcome to Watershed.
So the teaching team's going to be up here in a few minutes, and they don't have the mic yet. I've got the mic. So I'm going to tell you what I think is the most important thing about Watershed is the ability for people to be themselves. My opinion, it is the most important thing for me, is that we can all stand up here and be ourselves, that Ollie can be himself, that anyone who stands on this stage, anyone who shows up here can be themselves. So we're going to sing a song about it. Show me where your darkness lies. You don't ever have to hide. Oh, you can be yourself. You can be yourself. I feel your hidden river raging. I'm not asking you to change it. Oh, you can be yourself. Yeah, you can be yourself. Say what you want. I don't care where it goes. If I'm gonna love you completely, you gotta let it all show. Who knows you better? Who will love you anymore? You can trust me completely. I'm just asking for you to be yourself. You can be yourself. You're my hero, you're my villain. Oh, I don't care who is. You can be yourself. Yeah, you can be yourself. I'm in love with all your pages. trust me completely. I'm just asking for you to be yourself. You can be yourself. The way I see it, we are all afraid to love. It's safe to let me love you. No part of you I wouldn't touch. We fall down, we weaponize our words. No secret has the power to diminish your worth. Say what you want, I don't care where it goes. If I'm gonna love you completely, I gotta let it all show. Who knows you better? Who could love you anymore? You can trust me completely, just asking for. Say what you want, I don't care where it goes. If I'm gonna love you completely, gotta let it all show. Who knows you better? Who could love you anymore? You can trust me completely, just asking for you to be yourself. Oh, you can be yourself. You can be yourself. You can be yourself.
Good morning. I am not the teaching team, at least not entirely. My name is David. I am one of the members of the teaching team here at Watershed. I'll invite the others up in a moment here. Two quick things. One, sort of an additional announcement. Sometimes we realize in the middle of the week that we have too many announcements. And so to manage y'all's attention span, we very strategically spread things out. And sometimes we do these little commercials for things at the beginning of the talk as a way to extend our announcement. I think so. Just a little peek behind the curtain of how we make decisions here. But no, two things that we just wanted to spread out so we weren't just overwhelming you with too much information in the moment is, in addition to the affinity groups that Dom did a phenomenal job of talking about, she got the ages mostly right. Y'all figure it out. You can self-sort. They're all adult groups, and you can make adult decisions. So, but in addition to those, we have a number of other things coming up. One is, and we've been talking about our block communities and sort of what we're trying to push into the water for a number of weeks now. You're going to hear a little bit more about that next week. But then we have sort of like a third category of gatherings that I'm going to use a word that maybe sounds unattractive, but y'all should be super excited about it. Is they're more like classes, where you can learn things. The first you hear about all the time, and it's starting in a couple weeks here, and that's Preface. So if you are new with us or new-ish and you've never gone through Preface, you should go to Preface, especially if maybe you're like two or three weeks into spending time with us, and you're like, what is this place exactly? What did I just walk into? You will get that answer. Well, you'll get something that vaguely resembles an answer. If you go to Preface. But that is starting in a few weeks here. And then running concurrent with Preface is something that I haven't actually gotten to do in a while. I used to do it a lot more often, and that's something called Reclamation, which is an opportunity to go deeper on something. And we're titling this one Reclamation Cosmos. The inspiration for it was actually a question that I got during a Q&A that I did a few weeks ago that had nothing to do with what we were talking about that morning. So I couldn't answer it then, but I was like, you know what, I could talk about that for 4 sessions. And so we're going to be exploring kind of the intersection of faith and reality, so nothing major. But that's going to include questions around like meaning, creation, the universe, why is any of this stuff here? What do we do with that? What are the implications of what the biblical text tells us about these things? And mostly it's an opportunity for me to nerd out with other people who want to nerd out with the word out. So please sign up for that. That and Preface. Those dates that you see for Reclamation are also the dates for Preface. Childcare is provided. It's all totally free. You have no excuses. So please join us. Now to shift gears, awkward transition. What are we doing this morning? So this whole commune series, and shout out to my friend Brooke. I know commune is spelled wrong there. That was deliberate. It's actually the French spelling, so I'm very cultured. But no, the whole point of this is it's the root. You can see the little, the full words kind of hidden in there. Communication, communion, community. These are the roots of what it means for us to be together. And in addition to the talks, the sermons, whatever it is we do up here that you've been hearing during this series that kind of talk about kind of the values and the philosophies that we have around that, we've also been trying to sort of demonstrate some of the intentionality that we have behind the way that we structure this community. So you've met most of our lead team members. You'll meet the final one next week. And this morning, you're going to meet the teaching team. And one of our band members was commenting this morning and said he didn't realize what was happening. He's like, I don't think I've ever seen the whole teaching team here at the same time, which is maybe true. I don't know. I mean, sometimes we blend in a little bit more, but in just a moment, you're going to get to see the whole teaching team here at the same time. And there's other folks who share the stage with us, Dom, Tommy, others who are up here. But this is the team that gets together and we sort of collectively chart the course for what we're talking about in the sermon message part. And so we have a retreat annually, we meet bi-monthly and things like that. But the purpose of this morning is to demonstrate the diversity of this team. Questions of diversity, equity, and inclusion are popular right now for reasons, and there's a great deal of intentionality around the diversity of this team. I think I've got a slide actually that talks about this, and I'm going to read this kind of as the there it is, as the teaching team can, if they want to begin making their way up here. This is on the website, hidden kind of deep in there. It says, "At Watershed, we believe that diversity extends beyond identity, not to minimize identity, but it goes beyond identity into experience, even the experience of God. And while we know that we can never reflect that diversity perfectly, we aim to create a teaching experience wherein attendees, that's you, can learn and grow in the ways and means that are recognizable to them. And so our teaching team is made up of persons with a broad spectrum of ethnic, spiritual, educational, neurological, generational backgrounds, and identities, while also bringing their own stylistic distinctiveness to the art of teaching and preaching. And so we're going to hopefully demonstrate that just by talking to each other this morning. Could totally fail, who knows? But we got jokes, so y'all have a good time either way.
We almost missed our cue because you didn't say Avengers Assemble.
I did not say Avengers Assemble. Sidebar, I told Cedric this a few minutes ago. It didn't end up happening, but I had this vision for, instead of doing just a talk where we did this, where we did like a whole 3-week series where we sort of I call it like putting together a special team. And we would get someone like Michael Gray on our lead team maybe to put on an eye patch, be Nick Fury, and kind of film this whole thing like as a bumper video where we're putting, and then we would introduce ourselves like Avenger style. This is the first that everyone but Cedric is hearing of this, so obviously the idea didn't go far. Maybe in the future. That was pretty good. I couldn't do that. That's why I'm on the teaching team and not the band. All right. Okay. So what I want to do this morning in classic, 3-point sermon style is I've got 3 words. 3 words. There's some alliteration going on that I want to explore our version of these 3 words. The first is story. So as succinctly as possible, I know that's hard for you and I, but as succinctly as possible, what is our story? How did we get here? Why are we, what are we bringing to the table experientially? The second one is style. I don't know what they're doing. The second one is style. And this is less like what we're wearing and more about, you'll notice if you spend time with us, if you come like consecutive Sundays, which I know some of you don't do, but if you come consecutive Sundays, you'll notice that the way that we show up is very different. The way we present, the way we speak. You don't see this part, but the way that we prepare, it's all very different. And there's a lot of freedom that we have. And then the third one is specialty. We all bring some unique things to the table, some areas of expertise, some areas of excitement, maybe, of passion. And that inevitably sort of kind of spills out into what we do. And so hopefully that'll get kind of demonstrated here. But let's start with story. So that's going to be the hardest one to be succinct with. So we're gonna chop it off first. So I don't care which one of you start. It could be any of you. But like just a little bit about the background, specifically spiritually. Like where are you coming from as far as your spiritual journey to end up at a place like Watershed? What does that look like?
I'll go. Seems like there's a little dissension here. I really liked the way that Ollie introduced himself. He started with sort of this positionality statement. Like Ollie, I grew up in the Roman Catholic tradition. I'm dual citizenship from Costa Rica and U.S. American. And so a lot of my spirituality, or the way that I come to Scripture, is first from that Roman Catholic lens, with a heavy dose of liberation theology, which is born out of place and identity, particularly of Central America. And the sort of legacy of otherness that exists by way of the church, but also just by sort of place. And I think as I have evolved, I've been coming to Watershed for 19 years, I want to say. I went through sort of the deconstruction phase that I think a lot of Christians go through, but now I would describe myself as I'm working to decolonize and to reach into my ancestry to think about indigenous ways of knowing and indigenous wisdom. That becomes really important to me. So when I come up on stage on a Sunday, that is the story that's sort of informing how I show up and the stories that I tell.
Cedric Lundy, and let's see, born and raised in Michigan, Ann Arbor, Michigan. So you will often, so that's a Spartan fan, that's unity down here, unity exemplified. You often hear me make sports references because I'm a big sports fan. But I was raised in white evangelicalism since the time I was 6. The reason for stating that is quite obvious. But was raised in a Free Methodist church when my parents said to us, hey, we are part of a Free Methodist church, but you're a Christian. And I had no idea how much of a huge impact that would have on my life as I navigated growing up in youth group and youth ministry during peak 90s, just purity, culture, the rise of this big evangelical youth Christian movement, became a youth pastor myself, and also was involved with like a Presbyterian church, so just being able to go in these different places, just kind of knowing who I am, because a big part of even my journey was in high school. I'm obviously black, but I wasn't, quote, black enough for the black kids. I played baseball, but I wasn't a jock. I had all advanced placement classes, but I wasn't a nerd. I was one of the best art students in my school, but I wasn't one of the artsy kids that no one understood me. There was just nowhere where I fit. And so a huge part of my journey just really is just finding my identity in Christ. And so being rooted in that, as I, kind of similar to what you said, Sean, going through that Christian deconstruction phase, I didn't even know I was experiencing it. I was just continuing to be a learner. And so, yeah, a lot of those things weren't hard shifts for me. Coming to Watershed, which I had been tangentially associated with from their birth in 2005 because I was at the church that I attended during my undergrad studies back up in Michigan. One of the couples that helped plant, the Hofords helped plant Watershed. I knew them from there, so we just happened to be at Charlotte at the same time. So there were a few people that I knew in Charlotte when I came and would just help out, even though I was over at Calvary Church. You may have heard of it, you may have seen it. You may have seen it. You know, they repainted it, but I mean, it will forever be the Pepto Palace, Mary Kay's Cathedral, and Six Flags Over Jesus. But all that to say that that journey of just rethinking things that I had been taught, and just really asking, do they line up with who the person of Christ is, was huge for me. So when I show up, like, those are all parts of what you'll get, not just it's the quote token black guy, because this is a place where I don't have to exist as a token black guy, because I actually got to find my voice here. And I was given the space to actually speak from my voice and my experience, and not told that I have to tone it down. But my full experience of all those things that I mentioned, my hobbies, my interests, one of the big kind of influences is even the way that I speak is, for better or worse, I grew up listening to, not just watching The Cosby Show, but listening to the actual tapes of his stand-up of Bill Cosby. So while I have personally canceled him for very obvious reasons, like, I'm not going to deny that he had a huge influence in my coming up and telling stories.
My name is Kim. I was a DEI hire here about 3 years ago. Still employed. So glad for that.
I don't deny it.
And I had a survival identity way before I had a Christ identity. And I really found God, so to speak, in a 12-step program, and then had to do a lot of deconstruction from what I learned in a 12-step program, even though it was very effective for me, and I had an experience with Jesus there, that no matter what Christian nationalism says or anyone says about me or anybody that I love, I will never not know the love of Jesus because of that. And I'm so grateful for that. But I went from a 12-step program and deconstructing that into a church and being able to learn how to be a speaker and share my love and my experience and my spiritual awakening from that place. And then that very place that gave me space to be me, when I came a little bit more me than they had space for, I was no longer allowed to be there. And so I was able to come here and become a part of this. And my thing is really teaching about psychology and the intersection of that and theology. And again, like, I have such an excitement for Scripture, and people keep trying to not water down the Scripture, they try to water down me. And I absolutely refuse to let that happen. And this is such a foundation of why I will continue to be just ecstatic, excited, and just on fire for the Jesus that I know, who came here to feed the poor and to help those of us who have been marginalized.
I'm the lead pastor here, although it doesn't appear to be that way most days.
We need more humble leaders.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, humble, scared, I'll let you decide. My background, I'm from the state of Kentucky, grew up in a very, very small, predominantly almost 100% white community through all my education, high school, middle school, the whole 9 yards. My entry into ministry wasn't something that I really thought I would ever do. I thought I was going to be a high school math teacher and basketball coach until I retired, and I kind of found my way into different places in the United States. And my wife, Donna, and I lived in India for about 8 months. Wound up at a church in North Florida as a youth pastor and sports ministry director. Moved here in 2005 with the Hofords and started Watershed. I am the least classically trained whatever on this panel. No, it's true. Like I have the least amount of education when it comes to actually doing this, which is interesting because for 20 years I've only been asked twice, what are your credentials? So I don't know what to do with that. I don't know if that means I'm really coming off better than I really am, or that you guys just don't care. Either way, I think part of what has happened for me here, I showed up with all of the same operating systems, I would argue, for the most part, that all of us were handed and that all of us have had to contend with. And I never anticipated being in a community that was not only wanting to move in a direction that is away from previously what they understood to have enjoyed or embraced, but then also to give permission to their lead pastor to also go on a journey. That's just unheard of from everything that I know about churches. Usually that's what implodes churches, and by some bizarre gift or mystery, it's actually, I think, what has helped animate this community forward. So I am a byproduct of what this community does to a person in all the best ways when it comes to dismantling that person, that attachment to certain ideas around identity and certainty, and then what happens in the aftermath.
Awesome. Before I attempt to succinctly share my story, shout out to, there's actually a 6th teaching team member, kind of in spirit. She's not here. Blair Gore, our family pastor, she just texted in as we were getting started to say hi. She's in D.C. now, but she's welcome back up on the stage anytime she's in town, which is, I hope you're listening, Blair, hopefully frequent. No, but me, I, like some of my colleagues here, I grew up in American evangelicalism. Technically, early on when I was really little, we were part of a denomination, but quickly we were the churches that we were a part of kind of moved into the stage where they didn't want people to know that they were Baptist anymore, and so, but those were the sorts of churches that I was a part of. Before coming here, I was a part of a huge mega church, even much bigger now, in the Phoenix, Arizona area. And during my time there were sort of like these two intersections that ultimately collided. One was theological, where the more I leaned into the depth and the breadth of the Christian tradition, I realized that the evangelical sort of expression or valence of that I had been raised in was, first off, very new and not very representative of the whole depth and breadth of the Christian tradition. So to some degree, and some of you alluded to this already, I just kind of learned more about my own faith, and people call that deconstruction, I guess, but it didn't feel that way to me. I was just like, oh, wow, there's way more to this than I would ever been told in any church I've been at growing up. And then the concurrent path was sort of the intersection of faith and justice. And I think really sort of the first moment of epiphany for me was kind of at the early onset of the Black Lives Matter movement. The thing that ultimately got me fired from that church was LGBTQ inclusion. They produced a document. I didn't want to sign it. Instead, I gave them a 35-page research paper as to why they were wrong, and now I'm here. So I skipped a few details, but that's the gist of it. I don't want to belabor the stories. I'm happy to tell the story in more detail.
Do you still have the paper?
I do. Actually, someone asked for it about a month or two ago. I think I sent it to you. I think you're here today. Anywho, yeah. But yeah, disclaimer, I have evolved a lot since then, so I'm not even sure if I even agree with myself from about 10 years ago, but it was very cathartic to write and to lay on the desk of Gary Norton. So
Name dropping now.
yeah, he's not watching. So to shift gears, the second sort of aspect of who we are, that diversity, the second aspect of diversity that I wanted to lean into is style. And I don't know how long, some of you even already alluded to that, you talked about Cosby and stuff like that, but I think I'm right about this. You might end up getting this in seminary, but none of us are like properly trained as preachers. My seminary program didn't include that, or if it did, I chose not to take that class. I don't know, but just the way that we show up, there's a diversity in that. There's a different way that we carry ourselves on stage. There's different things that we lean into. So, I mean, to some degree, we can only speculate as to how you all experience us. So you're going to be hearing what we think you're experiencing. We're going to be kind of trying to articulate that. But how would you all describe how you are showing up, less content and more form. What are people going to experience from you when it's one of your Sundays?
Well, I'm Larissa's wife. Yeah, so there's that. So that's super important. And my dog's name is Simba. So these are two very important facts that we need to talk about. So I think this is more about the form is that I like telling stories. I like the healing process. I like connecting to y'all. And honestly, there's just certain things out there I know that I didn't learn in graduate school, just kind of like going to David's point. Going to graduate school to be a psychotherapist didn't teach me to be a psychotherapist, right? It's all the advanced training and knowledge past that, but it's also just intentionality of sitting with someone and learning to be in the moment with somebody. And so I feel like that's what I want to bring here is being in the moment with you. I'm on this stage, and so when you leave here, you can stay connected to yourself a little bit longer than you could before you walked in. And that's always my hope and my prayer when I get up here.
I'm awkward on stage, and I say that with a lot of self-love and endearment. But I think for me, part of this is that I have a lot of imposter syndrome when I come up here on this stage. I hardly can ever get the word sermon out and say it seriously. My father moved to Charlotte and doesn't know I do this. Like, there's just a lot of, thank you. It's not reluctance. I don't want it to sound that way. There's a lot of still yet becoming that's happening for me on stage. And as I was listening to my friends here talk, the one thing that I think allows me to come up here in sort of that, I'm going to be the fastest talker, I'm going to say it the most succinct, and I'm going to get off stage so that we can all make it to the game on time, is that my ideas are still in formation. I have been, this started out as like a, hey, Sean, would you maybe want to talk during Advent, I think is, and I spoke, and then it just was like, oh, we should keep you on, and it was, in my mind, it had a shelf life. That it was going to be like, a couple times a year for a couple of years, and then they'd rotate me out. And so I think what allows me to continue staying here is that we are not static. Watershed is not static. It's ever evolving. It's ever changing. And I am allowed to change my mind. And so sometimes I think there's this weight that we feel pressure of getting it right when you're on stage because someone might repeat those words or take them out of context. And we see that happening culturally all the time. And so there's a lot of trepidation for me on a Sunday morning when I come because I want to make sure that I'm getting it right, and not right as in like correct, but right as in, gosh, I hope I can say the thing that's going to help move the meter for someone, or gosh, I hope that someone feels seen in this moment. And it's hard to do because this group is so eclectically and beautifully diverse. And I can't, it'd be one thing if I knew everybody in the space has church trauma, but they don't, which is wonderful. And everybody comes from this sort of singular socioeconomic background, and so I know what to say, and they don't. And so that is hard, but I think that tension keeps me hopefully sharp on stage. And so I think I show up in that vein. I show up as a storyteller. I show up right now in style. I think grief is a lens by which I see the world. Motherhood is a lens by which I see the world. The duality and tension of everyday living and ambiguity is a lens through which I see the world. And all of those come with very little training and very little. So yeah, please don't quote me ever.
I can remember early on in ministry, even without the formal training us how to preach and develop a sermon, there very much was a framework that we were expected to follow. And also, oftentimes, certain people within the realm of the ministry world were kind of held up before us as the kind of people to emulate. And so those of you in particular, you were in evangelicalism in the 90s and early 2000s, like There was a time where everybody was trying to sound like Rob Bell. And there is a time where too many people were trying to sound like Mark Driscoll. You know, I just use those two as an example of, you know, different people would be held up and we're all supposed to somewhat kind of be like them. And early on, while I was at Calvary, I was new to Charlotte, there's this family that had me over to their house because they'd see this single guy that doesn't have family in town. It's like, hey, you want to come over to our house for lunch after church and just hang out? And I did, and they said, hey, just so you know, anytime on a Sunday after church, you are more than welcome to come and have lunch after church with us and our family. And for the first about 15 months that I lived here, pretty much every Sunday after church, I was at their house. So the man of the house, his name was Paul Cherry. He was a volunteer in the high school group, and so our Sunday youth service, he was always there. And in the midst of a bunch of crazy church drama conflict going on, we went from having like a 4-person youth team to basically 2. And I was the only one that really now was speaking every Sunday. And one Sunday after church, sitting on his couch watching the Panthers, Paul says to me, he says, you're a really good communicator, a very good communicator. He says, but whoever that was up on stage, that's not you. He said, I want the Cedric that sits down with my family at my dinner table every Sunday. That's the Cedric that I want to see. And those words right there unlocked for me the ability to go up and stop trying to kind of emulate someone else and just be myself. So I tell that story to say, what you're going to get from me is me.
Well, and it's interesting that you talk about that moment where there was someone that said, you got to figure out who you are. That very similar story that happened within the context of our leadership and our staff, for many of the same reasons that you're describing. I'd never done this before, and there was this thought that you watch somebody do this and you go, well, if they can do it, anybody can do it, which is just ridiculous. It's a ridiculous thing to think. And so when we started Watershed, like the first 5 months, I realized I had said everything that I knew after 5, and I'm going, I don't even know what to say now. I'm done. I'm out of, and so I was repeating or mimicking all of those thinkers and communicators that were fueling me. But then after a while, there was a lack of authenticity that kind of started to spring out of that. And one of our staff at the time set me down and said, stop trying to be somebody that you're not, and just who are you? And even if it's 15 minutes instead of 30, we would rather have that. And so that set me on this journey. And I think when I think about style, I think about standing up and realizing that there are incredibly intelligent people in the room that know more than me. And so trying to somehow say something that would create space for that person, as well as someone who is walking in and the thing that we say might be the first time they've ever heard it, even if I've said it 10 times or someone else has repeated. And we talk about that ad nauseum as a team. It's like the first things that we circle back to might be the first time someone has ever heard that. And so trying to incorporate part of what has been happening for the last 20 years while also talking about the new thing that we're now wrestling with, that's, I think, part of the way I show up. I have a tendency to want to take myself on a journey through the talk and thereby invite the community into that journey. There's a bit of a structure that kind of shows up in my style. I'm a storyteller, and I love the energy between. I love it when I feel the energy between myself and what's in the room. And I remember telling Sean when she first started, I said, this community sits on the edge of their seat waiting for the reason to applaud, waiting to cry, waiting to laugh. It's like they're out there going, oh, you can do this, you can do this. Oh, there you are, I just saw you, and we love you. And I think that's been true for every experience here for all of them. I think I'm speaking for everyone, yeah.
So I think the first time I did something that could loosely be defined as like a talk or a sermon was my high school graduation. I was not the valedictorian or the salutatorian. I wouldn't have charted. But I was the only person who wanted to speak or was open to doing that. And I wasn't thinking of it as like a sermon at the time, but if you go back and look at it, it's on a VHS. It looks not unlike what I do now. There was a lot of pop culture references and humor, which is the way that I connect with folks. I think we all probably have our own version of awkward that we lean into, which I think is part of what makes us so endearing. But I'm a bad storyteller. There is no detail that is superfluous, so I get bogged down in the minutia of. So I try to just avoid it, and I talk about other stories that are more communal or collective, like Star Wars. But I think more than anything, Kim did a talk on this. I think it was last year, where she's heard me. She and I have talked about this a lot in the last few months about how, we're showing up as there's these like three valences, thinker, feeler, doer. And usually one of us is leading with one, we're sort of kind of following up a little moderately with one, and then there's another one that we just kind of completely avoid. And that's kind of just natural and organic. And so I am showing up as a thinker first. And so when I make self-deprecating jokes about having a spaghetti brain or about kind of meandering off in weird places, it's just how my mind works and where my mind goes. And then the feeling thing for me kind of just shows up organically in there. But what I am almost allergic to is the doer thing. It is very hard for me to tell you what to do, or even to ask you to do something. And some of that comes back to my own, just how I experience demands and how my brain struggles with those. But usually what I want to do is I want to maybe give you a new way of thinking about things and maybe a little bit feeling about things, and then make an adult decision. You decide what to do with it. And I say that not to in any way disparage or demonize. Some of you are very, very good at telling people what to do.
I couldn't tell if you were looking at Kim or me, or
I claim that.
Kim. I was looking at Kim.
yeah, Kim for sure.
And you better do it. You better
But
do it. Your life will be better.
A little bit Cedric as well. And I think sometimes that exhortation, the doing piece, is what people normally think of as proper preaching. But I think you get a healthy representation of all of that. There are folks up here who lead with the feeling, and maybe the doing is secondary, or lead with the doing, and maybe the thinking is secondary. And so, but that's how I kind of show up. And so it's more, I don't know. I feel like I'm more teacher than preacher. And this kind of goes back to the thing Austin said to kind of set us up before is, I feel a great deal of freedom to just be that. I don't want to be a preacher. I don't want to tell you what to do. But I don't have to, because I have other people up here who are very qualified at telling you exactly what you should do. And they do that on the weeks that I'm not up here. And so I really, really revel in and appreciate having that freedom, kind of just knowing I don't have to be all things to all people. I can be authentic. And there's at least some of you who connect with that. And if not, don't worry, I won't be up here next week. All right, this is also the hint to the band. This is us landing the plane. We have already sort of leaned into a little bit of this final question of like specialty or expertise or passion. So, feel free to repeat yourself or kind of glaze over it, since we're all watching this clock kind of tick down, and we want to be sensitive to that. But we're going to go over time. It's fine. But kind of just to wrap things up. Yeah, just to wrap things up. What is there something you want to leave folks with that you feel is uniquely you, something that you get excited about talking about, and just kind of remind people that they can expect that from you when you're on stage? They had these questions beforehand.
My excuse is I'm in seminary right now, so I'm bogged down with a lot of other assignments, speaking of doing, but no, just kidding. I would say for me is more than likely when I'm up here, I am going to take some text from Scripture and open it up but maybe like show you what I see that I may have not seen previously and what wasn't taught to me before. Because, I mean, again, for a lot of us that were raised in church, we were raised to read it only one way. And any divergence from that was heresy, right? Or at least the slippery slope. You're going to be backsliding. And we're going to put you on our prayer list, Lord. Right? In the South, they would say, bless your heart. Yeah, 20 years, I still haven't started doing that one. But kind of connected to what you said, part of the reason why that's a big part for me is just an embodiment of these things. Because what became painstakingly clear to me is the kind of Christianity that I was raised in was disembodied. It was totally disconnected from bodies, which then made it easier to demonize and make monsters out of certain kind of bodies. So that's why a big part of it, I am going to speak to my experience as a black man, but also recognizing that my experiences aren't that different, or it's the same kind of systems that go after my queer brothers and sisters, queer folk siblings, and, you know, women as well. So speaking to that, but also recognizing, because I was in white evangelicalism so long and just white spaces so long, if these are new ideas to me, and I've been raised in the same spaces as all these white folks, they don't know it either. So we got to tell them, but tell them with this kind of grace of knowing that they don't know what they don't know. Now, what they do with that afterwards, it's on them. But at least assuming the best, or assuming a ignorance that is not by their own doing, but by design.
Thank you, Cedric. You know, for me, honestly, you being here and every week that y'all are here and watching you and seeing you, knowing your stories and what you've been through, and that you're worshiping openly, worshiping the way you want to worship, watching people interact and laugh and feel free here and show up as self and wear whatever you want to wear and be who you are. That is my embodiment. So when I'm on this stage, I want my special to be that I'm just simply giving back to you what you've already given to me.
I think David and I have a sort of gravitation towards the notion of duality. I think you've heard that from me a lot. Duality as opposed to binary. And I think, too, some of the folks who have inspired me or who kind of inform my work are black and brown women. And Gloria Anzaldúa is a queer poet and thinker, and she talks about ambiguity and leaning into the tension of things. And so the duality of, or plurality, right, that lots of different perspectives can exist, lots of different ways that approaching a problem can exist, and that holding the tension that two things, which can be at first glance diametrically opposed, we have to hold them in both hands. And that, for me, is probably like one of life's greatest lessons, and it's one that kind of, I think, runs undercurrent to everything that I try to talk about from this space.
Thanks, Sean. I think the thing that surfaces for me was this moment about 10 years ago after a Sunday, being accosted by someone who was frustrated at the idea of not being fed here. And in that time, in our way of thinking, it was all about, you know, what teaching us the Bible, or the Bible being taught properly here. And I remember saying, well, how often do you actually engage the scriptures? And there was like this deer in the headlight look that, well, I don't. I expect you to do that for me. And I realized, I don't know, there's something wrong with the ecosystem when that's the question getting asked. And what's happened over the last 10 years, at least from my perspective, and if you've gone through preface, you might have heard me say this, but the notion of me or us feeding anyone is not a thing here. That doesn't exist. What does exist is the creation of hunger. Because if somebody's really hungry, they will go find what it means to eat. And so there's a limit to what we can do in a 20 or 30 minute talk or a Sunday morning And the hope is that when I'm speaking, at least I'll speak for myself again, there's something that gets said that you just can't shake. You're like, oh, I don't know what to do with that. And rather than just keep showing up thinking that somehow we're going to resolve that sort of moves you into a journey that says, I got to figure this out. And I am now taking ownership and personal responsibility with the journey that now Watershed is partnering in versus just cookie cutting it with me and just handing you the answer.
I almost want to just tell you, just go watch my talk from last week, because that was kind of just like a pretty normal David talk, had all the normal flourishes. But no, I mean, Sean kind of hinted at this. I think for me, I have a draw, or a fascination to, she used the word duality, I didn't use the word like dialectic, like the both andness of, of the contradictions, and that you'll hear me talk about contradiction a lot, and resisting the urge to reduce contradictions to oppositions, but to sort of take up and include the positive with the negative. And I don't just mean that in like a trite sort of like, oh, I'm, optimism versus pessimism, but like the negative, like a nothing that is something. Like there's this void that is part of existence, that's even part of God, and that there's something beautifully generative about that. And so if God is anything, I think that we have to understand that God is the God of the possible, making the impossible possible, whatever that might look like. And there is something beautifully freeing here about just being able to explore the possibility of the divine, and seeing that as also precisely human. And so that's what energizes me. I don't think I always necessarily say it in a compelling way. I'm certainly repetitive, but the thing that keeps me wanting to do this is the conviction that there's so much more to see. Because, kind of like Matt said, if we kind of get to the end of all the things that we know, well then, okay, there's better things we can do with our time. But if there's more to see, if there's more that's possible, those are the things that I want to be curious about. And those are the things that, and I don't want to just speak for myself here, because I think all of this whole team does this beautifully, but that there's always more. That's, I think, my aspirational hope for this team, that there's always more. And this team might look different in the coming years, but I am deeply, deeply grateful for the people on this stage and for the ways that they teach me as much as they teach all of you. And this has already been expressed, but we're also very grateful for you, because we were actually talking about this the other day. There's not a lot of churches that do it this way. We don't want to just like sit here and like, toot our own horn or anything like that, but a little bit we do. There are other amazing churches who are doing very similar work to what we do, and we learn from them, and we love them, and we hang out with them when we can. But this experiment is unique. It's unique, and so thank you out there so far for making it sustainable. We didn't know if it would be, but we're enjoying it, and so hopefully you are too. All right, that's it.
Blessed are the ones who do not bear all the broken pieces of their heart. Blessed are tears that fall on weary, pouring like the sky a falling star. Blessed are the ones and mourning, brave enough to shoulder, Lord, their scars. Blessed are the hurts that are not hidden, open to the healing touch of God. The kingdom is yours. Kingdom is yours. Hold on a little more. This survive. Still have strength to love their enemy. Blessed is the faith of those who persevere. Though they'll fall, they'll never know defeat. The kingdom is yours. The kingdom is yours. Hold on a little more. This is not the end. Hope is in the Lord. Keep your eyes on Him. The kingdom is yours. The kingdom is yours. Hold on a little more. This is not the end. Our hope is in the Lord. Keep your eyes on Him. Hold on a little more. This is not the end. Our hope is in the Lord. Keep your eyes on Him. Let's sing that again. The kingdom is yours. The Hold on a little more. This is not the end. Our hope is in the Lord. Keep your eyes on. Hold on a little more. Hold on a little more. This is not the end. Our hope is in the Lord. Keep your eyes on Him. I want to thank you so much for being here, for being a part of this space. All of this happens, this shared leadership, this shared teaching team. All of it happens because you all show up. You show up and you engage. You show up as yourself. You're brave. You're so brave. And I know that sometimes it feels like you can come into this space and it feels maybe like a little bit of a bubble where you can be brave, and that you have to go back into spaces where you can't be yourself, spaces where you have to change who you are. And there's a hope that exists here. There's a hope that exists here because you keep showing up. So thank you so much for being here. Our prayer is that you would feel a little less alone, that you would feel like you have a group of people who love you, that you would know more deeply that God loves you, and that you would go into your week and share that with others. Thank you again for being here. I hope you have a great week. We'll see you next Sunday.